All right. Hello to all of our destination marketers across the globe. We've got a lot of them here today. We are really looking forward to covering this topic. We're hearing about it from customers, we're hearing about it at conferences, and we know that it's top of mind, and that is sustainability. So we know it's top of mind for all types of different stakeholders within a destination, but especially critical from a marketing perspective, because step one to that is how can you showcase all of those great sustainable efforts you're already putting forth as a DMO. But the next piece is then attracting the right travelers who are going to stay in your destination longer. They're going to honor the local culture. They're going to treat the environment well, and they'll come back often. And we know that at the end of the day, if we can't make progress in marketing the destination to the right travelers that are super sustainable, there won't always be these beautiful places to visit. And I think the way that Sojourn and CrowdRiff really look at this is that digital and tech come together in a big way to help show that complete picture. So we feel in this space that if you don't have the right data, you can't see that complete picture. So today we're really looking forward to sharing with you how you can take advantage of digital marketing and of course drive those sustainable efforts. So on our agenda today, I've got two fantastic speakers with me, and they're going to cover, first and foremost, we'll have from the Sojourn perspective how you can reach sustainable travelers through highly targeted digital marketing campaigns. And then CrowdRiff's going to jump in, and we're going to walk through some ways that you can take advantage of user-generated content and put that into the mix to drive that sustainability. And as always, we are going to end with a Q&A. So without further ado, Steph, if you can jump in and just share a little bit about what Sojourn does and give us some of your background.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy days to join us today. I really appreciate it to talk about such an important topic. I'm Steph Dunford, and I am the sales director here at Sojourn, focusing specifically on destinations and attractions. And just quick overview, Sojourn is a digital marketing company that focuses on reaching travelers in real time based on search and booking activities that we see from over 100 data partners. And we utilize that data to really capitalize on understanding travelers, how they move, what they're interested in, what their behaviors are, what they're searching for, to really get the message out there and influence them on how they are and where they are going to book their next trip. And we really want to help drive the messaging of your destination home with them, not only by getting in front of the right consumers, but making sure that we bring them to your community and drive positive economic impacts for your destination.
Awesome, love it. And we love CrowdRiff for a number of reasons. We like partnering up on really great content like this, but I think you'll learn from hearing from Zoe that they have a really good foothold on what sustainability means and how their amazing offering can support that. So I'm going to kick it over to Zoe to share a little bit more about herself and what CrowdRiff does.
Thanks so much, Christy. Hello, everyone, as well. I'm thrilled to be joining you today for this really important discussion, as Stephanie has said. My name is Zoe Weldon, and I'm the Community Growth Lead at CrowdRiff. And I've come to CrowdRiff with over 15 years experience in marketing, working with innovative companies like Lululemon Athletica as their head of community, and DMOs like Destination BC, which is here in Canada. And for those of you who are new to CrowdRiff, we are the visual marketing software that over 800 innovative DMOs across cities, states, and countries like Visit Denmark, Marketing Greece, and Visit Harrogate use to drive results by sourcing, acquiring rights to, and leveraging visuals. And on the next page. So with CrowdRiff, what we're excited to share is that what you're able to do is source UGC for partners, locals, and future travelers through hashtags, social media accounts, our collector feature, and other features that allow you to get rights to content so you can actually use them across all of your marketing channels. And we also allow you to manage and organize all your visuals in one place. And our digital asset manager really makes finding photos as easy as doing a Google search. And then through CrowdRiff, you're also able to quickly schedule and share this content across website, social media channels, and more. I will pass it back to you, Christy.
Wonderful. Okay, so a couple quick housekeeping things. You've probably heard them before if you've been to one of our webinars. We are absolutely going to send this recording out afterwards, and we've got that Q&A session that I mentioned. We got a ton of great questions within just the registration portion, so we're going to try to cover all those today, and just continue to send those out in that webinar control panel you see on the right there as we go. And with that, we can send it over to Steph to talk about targeting sustainable travelers.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate it. And thank you again for all of your time. So to start off, we want to help you understand targeting sustainable travelers and what exactly that means. So a fun fact, we know that more travelers than ever are realizing that sustainability really matters. It's not only a hot topic for the travel industry, but our planet as a whole. We need to be able to make sure that when we go to a destination, we make it better than when we leave it better than when we arrived. So the World Tourism Organization describes sustainable travel as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, industry, environment, and host communities. Oh, sorry, Rebecca, if you want to flip back one. Thank you. So here's the thing. We know that 87% of travelers want to travel more sustainably. That's a crazy number. That means 87% of all people that are looking to travel are already focused on this initiative and want to do good in the communities that they're arriving in. But we found that only 39% of travelers actually manage to keep their travel sustainable. That's less than half. So we know from this that their travelers are out there and they're looking for reasons to travel more sustainably and do better for the environment. And it's our job as travel marketers to help to find them and then help them understand how they can best achieve this when they're on their travel adventures. Next slide. So let's talk about the importance of sustainability in travel for the destination. First of all, it protects your local environment. It offsets the carbon footprint that travelers are putting into the ecosystem when they're actually traveling to your destination. It improves the local community, not only for the travelers that are visiting, but also for the people that live there. It boosts the local economy. It eliminates any added waste, conserves local energy, and promotes a good habitat for wildlife. So that is the importance of it for the destination. But here are some more reasons on why it's important for travelers as well. Go back up, Rebecca. Thank you. So the importance to travelers are they understand that it helps reduce the environmental impact of where they're arriving. They want to have a relevant experience at the destination. No one wants to go to a beach and see trash on the beach. No one wants to go to a restaurant and see food being wasted. There are many, many examples that we could give. But ultimately, travelers want to feel good about the travel choices that they're making, and they want to find inspiration in visiting those sites. So realizing the visual impact of tourism on destinations is important for both DMOs and travelers and locals alike. Next slide. So next, we want to highlight a few of the recent and current clients that Sojourn specifically is working on this initiative with. And we have a few really good examples from around the world that we wanted to share, not only so you can see how they're doing it, but how you can also utilize these types of strategies and concepts in your own marketing moving forward. So the first example we have is Ras Al Khaimah. And their biggest focus on sustainability is focusing on their hotel growth initiative. So first of all, they're adopting an all-inclusive approach from ensuring new hotel projects are developed in an organic pace to building new attractions with sustainability at their core. And then their tourism board has applied a mindful approach to new hotel developments, consulting with hospitality partners to ensure spacious venues with thoughtful, sustainable landscaping and maintaining measured pipeline to avoid rapid, less well-planned expansion and overcrowding. As the licensing authority for all new hotel developments, Ras Al Khaimah Tourism Development Authority is able to set guidelines and protocols to regulate sustainability standards and work closely with hotels to ensure sustainable practices. The next example that we have is Visit Finland. We can go on, thank you. And I think there might be a little bit of a delay, so sorry for any of that on our end with switching slides. Visit Finland is focused more on transportation. So the first example was with a hotel approach, and this is transportation. And with all these examples, we took different approaches to give you more specific initiatives that, again, you could use in your own communities. So Visit Finland, their goal is by 2030 to have reduced its dependency on important fossil fuels by 50% and then ban the use of coal and power generation. The Finnish strategy also foresees 250,000 electric cars on the roads by 2030. And the measures will be taken to change the transportation system as a whole to create more service-based mobility and easier access to public transportation. This means a 30% increase in the use of bikes and walking. The next example that we have is a focus on sustainable tourism, and that's a tongue twister, but also an amazing play on words, and improves the hyper focus that Switzerland has on sustainable efforts. So Swisstainable is all about having one's finger on the pulse and maximum relaxation in a natural setting. This is their goal for travelers when they arrive. They want their travelers to enjoy nature close up and firsthand. They want them to experience the local culture in an authentic way. They want them to consume regional products, and then they want them to stay longer and delve deeper into the environment. One of the most closely knit rail networks in the world, the transportation system, and Switzerland as a whole, is a recycling champion and has impressive air and water quality compared to other countries. They're leading the way towards a sustainable future. And lastly, when it comes to recycling, Switzerland is one of the world's leading countries when it comes to waste management, with almost 90% of PET bottles being put into new use. They have also been leading the way in food waste management for years. The next example is going to take us more domestic, stateside, and this is Asheville, North Carolina, and their focus on food and waste reduction. So in 2017, Asheville City Council adopted a revised food policy action plan with the objective to create an actionable plan for city food waste recovery, composting, and redistribution. This is food that could feed our neighbors and dollars that could otherwise circulate in local economies and landfill space dedicated to unnecessary waste. So they really wanted to make sure that they have action plans in place to eliminate food waste. One of the really cool initiatives that they have going on in terms of messaging is you can look for the Save the Food Asheville logo on sanitation trucks in social media and popping up around the town as they collaborate with community partners to share tips and tricks to keep food out of landfill. And this is one way that you can really help your locals understand what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, and having a cohesive message to know that your city is really focused on this initiative as well. And then lastly, in this example, their food waste reduction initiative aims to provide useful information and tips to residents seeking ways to reduce their household food waste, pilot opportunities for community compost drop sites, and then elevating the message of food waste reduction and model food waste reduction initiatives in city facilities. And then we've got two more examples. So Visit Idaho, and they're really focused on caring for the outdoors. So we've talked a little bit about transportation, food waste, hotels. Idaho is taking a slightly different approach where they're really focused on maintaining the natural beauty and caring for the outdoors. So they created the Recreate Responsibly Idaho. The RRI is a consortia of state and federal land managers committed to providing recreational educational resources to help preserve and protect Idaho's unique outdoor recreation opportunities. Idaho is also focused on social media and PR with outdoor ethics messaging on trash pickup, fire safety, wildlife viewing precautions, and trail etiquette to inform travelers and locals alike. And Travel with Care. So Travel with Care is Visit Idaho's specific program with a little different twist than RRI, where RRI is more about land management and outdoor ethics. Travel with Care is focused on three pillars: care for yourself, care for others, and care for Idaho. And then last but not least, Discover Puerto Rico. So Discover Puerto Rico, they have really learned that driving the message of sustainability is focused around storytelling and telling the right stories to bring sustainability initiatives to life and really immerse travelers and attract travelers who are going to come. They're going to spend more, they're going to stay longer, and they're going to do a lot of good for the community because it's really about building a loyalty base. So through this, they're finding the right travelers to connect with locals, treat the community well, connect with the culture, and become repeat visitors. They're working to reach conscientious travelers and consistently promoting health and safety in ads. And they did this throughout the last few years, even in the midst of a pandemic. This was really one of their key messages to travelers, and they're continuing to do it and continuing to evolve it in a sustainable way. And they welcome diverse travelers. And what I find really fascinating about Discover Puerto Rico is that they welcome diverse travelers, but they're really looking to help disperse them off the beaten path. So one of their key focuses is making sure that travelers move to 77 different municipalities around the island to help those economies flourish as well. We know that when we go to any destination, there's always a key spot where tourists kind of gather and they flock, and there have been hotels and restaurants and attractions and everything built around that. But sustainability is also about dispersing throughout local economies to move tourists from very specific locations, which are still very important, but also giving a chance to other areas of an island, a city, a state, etc., to make sure that we are dispersing those tourists in ways that make sense and ways that are going to work best for economies and also care for those economies. All right, so the last few slides have been some really good examples on how a few destinations around the globe are really hyper-focused on sustainability and how they're doing it well. Some of which you may think, gosh, that's going to take a while for me to implement, or that sounds really expensive, but there are a few ways that you can start to promote sustainability in your economy, in your destination today. And we've listed those here for your help. So what can you do today? Promote sustainable tourism on social media, website, paid media. You may choose to do a one-off. You may choose to have more consistent brand messaging like they're doing in Asheville, where you have it on the side of trucks and you have it on social media and you have it in your advertising. So there are multiple ways that you can go about that. And then work with local residents and offer educational resources to drive sustainability. If they're bought in, travelers will be. This is a really, really important note, because ultimately, locals are your first line of defense when it comes to your destination, right? You need your locals to understand not only this is what we are going to promote for travelers coming in, but this is a lifestyle that our community is going to adopt, so that we make sure that everyone has the perfect experience when they come. And that not only allows you to drive new travelers, but also that loyalty, because when people come and they have a good experience, they want to come back and they want to tell people about it, and they want to create user-generated content, which Zoe's going to talk about in a little bit. And then the next one is provide tips to travelers on public transportation, energy conservation, using less water, offsetting carbon footprints, off the beaten path locations, avoiding single-use plastics. We've seen a lot of these little messages around. You can see it in a hotel when it comes to using less water. You can see it around the travel industry right now in little snippets, but it's really important that we continue to grow this message and have it everywhere. It doesn't just have to be in the hotel. It doesn't just have to be in the restaurant. You can have this message everywhere, and it comes in many, many different shapes, sizes, forms, as we've kind of seen with the examples that we've talked about thus far. Partner with local hotels and attractions. So ensure that they are also thoughtful about sustainability. Make sure those major theme parks are focusing on sustainability. Make sure those hotels are focused on sustainability. That way you have all of your stakeholders within your destination moving towards the same goal and trying to achieve the same purpose, and getting the same message out there for your travelers. And then use data. So we're going to talk about this in the next slide. Use data to understand what travelers are doing in the destination, how they're moving around the destination, what their behaviors are, what their likes are, and what their interests are, and how they're spending money. So use all of the data you possibly can at your fingertips to understand how to build your strategy and your message around sustainable travel. And then reach the right audience. So make sure that you're utilizing your marketing dollars in the very best way to reach the right audience that is sustainability focused. And we're going to get into that in more detail in the next slide. So taking advantage of travel data, what does this mean? You're a data company, tell us what this means. So utilize search, booking, and location data. They all have unique value and they all provide a different perspective into helping you understand what travelers are doing in your destination, but also what they're doing before they come to your destination. So what does that search data look like? What does that travel intent look like? What are they showing interest in? What kind of content are they consuming? What kind of social posts are they connecting to? So utilize that search data to allow you to understand planning and travel intent. And then understand demand data. So booking data shows demand trends and active travel. That helps you understand, okay, people that have searched for my destination, but then also people that have booked to come to my destination. What do they look like? What are their interests? What are their behaviors? Where else are they going? How long are they staying? What are they spending? And then the location data. So this really helps you understand how they're moving about once they arrive. So there's 3 different buckets. There's filling that funnel. There's understanding who is converted and who's coming. And then there's understanding once they arrive, how are they moving around the destination and how can I best use this to my benefit to provide the right types of messages to those travelers based on how they're moving, what their activities are, where they're spending, etc. And then the last slide, in terms of what Sojourn has to provide today before we jump over to Zoe, is really about reaching that right audience. So we've talked about specific examples on how destinations are doing this well. We've talked about using data to drive those decisions on how who you should message to. Now let's talk about how do you reach those people, right? That's the big question. How do we know who is sustainable or who's not sustainable yet that I can convert and get them to want to come to my destination because it is sustainable? So it's really about creating awareness first and foremost. It's about filling that funnel with people and travelers who lean heavily into sustainability or want to. Maybe they haven't yet shown that their behaviors are leaning towards traveling sustainably or keeping your environment sustainable once they arrive. But we learned earlier that 87% of travelers want to be more sustainable. They want to make the community better than when they arrived. And then the consideration piece. So use travel intent data to see where people are actively looking for a trip to your destination with eco-friendly search behavior. So it's that consideration piece. So awareness into consideration, into conversion, and down to loyalty. There's really different paths to that purchase. So the consideration area is, okay, people are starting to look at content related to sustainable travel. They're starting to absorb messages that are leaning towards that. They're starting to look at destinations that are focused on that, and how can we lean in and use that as part of our strategy. And then conversion. Once we know that they've booked and once they know that they're going to arrive, help drive travelers to less congested areas by promoting locations you want travelers to go. I would also say that this also speaks to the messages. Tell customers and tell travelers what you want them to do in the destination to be more sustainable. We know they want to be, but they need to understand how and where the resources are around the city that they can use at their fingertips to do that once they arrive. And then the loyalty. So once travelers are there, once they've visited, they've had a fantastic experience. They know that your destination is clean, that you're focused on the environment, that you want to do good, and that you want to make the world a better place, or you want to make the destination a better place for all travelers to experience. Then building that loyalty through user-generated content. If people come, and I used this example earlier too, if people come and the beach is beautiful and clean and there's no trash and you're saving specific places for sea turtles to lay nests, these are all things that really elicit people's emotions and really get people tied in and loyal to the destination that they're visiting in. So if they're there and they're seeing this, then they're going to naturally share user-generated content, which Zoe's going to talk a lot more about, but it's essentially having travelers take pictures of your destination. They see that beautiful sun that sets, they see that beautiful hotel, they see all of the beautiful things in nature, the mountains and everything that we are trying to help them see and promote. They're going to do it naturally. And that really goes into your organic search and playing back to what travelers can help do to promote the messages that you're trying to get across. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Zoe to talk more about user-generated content and how you can really help build that. Zoe has the word, how you can really help build that resource for yourself.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And yeah, as Stephanie mentioned, thank you for giving those examples as well at the end. And we are talking about UGC, or user-generated content. We've said that a few times, so I'd love to just go over what this actually is and why it's important. So on the next slide, we're going to share that UGC is content that is It's created by the people who are experiencing what your destination has to offer. So whether that be locals or visitors, and it's shown that by adding more UGC or user-generated content to your marketing efforts, that it's going to help build trust with your audiences. And they use that to then guide their travel decisions. So here are a few stats that we wanted to share that are just so fascinating. There's a 4 times higher click-through rate on UGC-based ads. 55% of consumers trust UGC over other kinds of marketing, and 28% there's a higher engagement rate on UGC social posts. You have 28% higher engagement. And these stats are really quite compelling for the use of UGC in your content and campaigns, and is why we're going to be sharing so detailed around UGC for the next slides. So I wanted to share this quote with you. So although respondents describe their friends and family as having the greatest influence on their sustainable travel choices, results actually show that it is social media, travel websites that have a significant influence. And we share that because you might not realize how large your impact is as a DMO on how travelers travel and choices that they make around this. So you're really at the forefront of this movement. And this quote is actually from our recent ebook on sustainability for DMOs. I'm pretty sure what you've already seen already, but if you've not received it yet, it will come in your follow-up email. And it's full of great data and examples from destinations that are leading the way all over the world. So I want to show you some sustainable tourism initiatives. So how you can use UGC is really to highlight sustainability efforts. And we're going to share 4 main ways to help you do just that. And we're going to give you ideas on how to market sustainability for your region. So the first one is promoting lesser known areas. First one is you can divert traffic from popular areas by highlighting secret areas from locals. And this allows you to spread people out while also showing off those hidden gems. Another one is to spread tourism budget across more of your regions. So by spreading those tourism marketing spends across your region, you're helping those local communities and smaller businesses and partners. And a third one is to give exposure to more of your destination's culture and history. You can create a really rich and authentic experience of your destination by working with locals and your local community to share this critical part of your destination story. And by doing this, you also build social license with your community. And to give you a great example of this is Visit Denmark, which is one of our clients. And this is a really great example of this. So when you think of Denmark, you probably think of Hygge and the classic colorful houses of Copenhagen, but you might not actually think about beaches and natural parks and deserts. And through Visit Denmark's Most Beautiful Places initiatives, they're actually actively inviting potential visitors to see their country as more than the stereotype, and they're inviting them to consider experiences that are outside of the main cities. So they're driving traffic to those lesser promoted areas. Another option is to interview local experts. On the next slide. Thank you very much. So you can interview local experts about sustainability. So you can create a video series with local firefighters about fire safety when camping. Another one is to interview restaurant owners or chefs about the sustainable practices that they implement. And you can show things like farm to table initiatives. And typically, local restaurant owners are so proud of the initiatives that they've created. So being able to showcase this and show the way that they're doing this and supporting sustainability in the region is a great way to be able to show off sustainability. Another one is to work with environmental experts. So for example, you've got park rangers, and you can develop signage to protect nature on hiking trails. So for example, telling people to not drop litter or stick to the path to support as little damage to the environment as possible. And then another example is to talk with local beach cleanup communities. And the nice thing about doing this is that it actually gives them exposure and shares the amount of litter that they find, which we hear about litter cleanup communities, but we often don't get to see the results of that. And sometimes that can be quite shocking. And sometimes, that supports understanding the deeper need of sustainability through those cleanup efforts. And giving you a great example of this is Visit Huntington Beach, also known as Surf City, USA. And they're a client of ours in California, and they've dedicated themselves to promoting beach cleanups for years now. They've been doing it for a long time. And in fact, Huntington Beach has 3 beaches where we're all included in the top 3 cleanest beaches in California. And 2 are actually named in the top 12 cleanest in all of the USA. So they also promote another volunteer initiative called Drains to Ocean, which is a grassroots nonprofit organization with a mission to keep pollution from flowing into rivers, lakes, and oceans. Another example is sustainable transport. And I love that because it's something that Stephanie also mentioned as well when they were talking about Switzerland with the sustainable efforts. With these, you can also, things that you can promote. Number one, you can do city bike tours. You can talk about electric scooters. You can talk about hiking routes in your area, accessibility of public transport, and even walking tours of your local areas. And the other thing too with these is that you can also dive deeper to share the story of the local partners and stakeholders and operators. Do you have a manifesto that aligns with their destination's sustainability values, touching on those social, cultural, environmental, and economic values? Well, the goal really is that the entire local economy should benefit from tourists who visit. So including people employed by travel industry businesses. So you could always layer in the stories of those that work at those businesses. Just some ideas for where you could share that richer narrative through the power of storytelling in UGC. And to give you another example, it will come as no surprise to you that another one of our clients, the Netherlands, is a leading destination for promoting cycling. You can find multiple itineraries on the website for inspiring cycle routes, and the DMO is extremely active in pushing for sustainable initiatives in general in their marketing. And so this is another great way to be able to show sustainable efforts in transport. And then another example, our last one, is to promote sustainable stores and restaurants. So you can look at vegan, vegetarian, farm-to-table restaurants. You can showcase organic markets, bulk food stores, fair trade stores, and local shops and small businesses. And to give you an example of that, I'd love to show you Visit Stockton. They are another great California customer of ours. And this is a really great example of how to do this right. They have this blog post called How to Be a Healthy Traveler in Stockton, California. And they promote farmers markets and vegan eateries, and they actually show off some of the shots of the market in the CrowdRiff galleries on their website. And they even hosted a farm to table event in May, and they called it Feast at the Fox. And this benefited the local culinary arts program. And so those are some great examples of how you can support those initiatives in using UGC to be able to bake that into the storytelling when you're sharing about sustainability.
All right, awesome. Thank you both so much. That is a ton of fantastic information, and we've got some great questions too. So I'm going to jump right into those, but again, continue sending in your questions. We like to send somebody to follow up with you directly if we don't cover them. So please just keep sending all those in. But to start off with, I think this is a really great one that I just pulled out, and both of you have covered really how we can get in front of those travelers that care about sustainable tourism. That's great, right? There's that, you mentioned the stat of 87% of travelers really want those sustainable initiatives, but how do we reach travelers that still need to be converted, for destination marketers that don't necessarily want to preach to the choir? What's the opportunity to sort of educate and engage with those that maybe don't understand sustainability or aren't excited about it yet?
Yeah, I can jump in here, Christy. Great question. And I think it's about creating a message and messaging to your travelers that want to come to the destination overall, and haven't necessarily shown, as you said, preach to the choir, haven't necessarily shown that they're looking exactly for sustainable travel. But we know, based on that stat, that most travelers are interested in some sort of sustainability when they're looking for their next travel plans. So allowing that messaging to be shared to mass audiences will only help the destination to improve those sustainability efforts, and also get the message out there to people who may not have considered that. So an example would be, so someone is looking to travel to a particular destination, but they've got 4 or 5 in mind. Well, one comes in with a sustainability message, and that might just be the hook to influence them to come to your destination, rather than picking the 4 who don't have that message toward something that they are already embracing in their everyday lives. So I would say that finding the right audience, or preaching to the choir, is everyone is the right audience, right? Creating a message that you can send out to the masses will only benefit the destination, and allow you to make that message well known to all of your travelers.
Yeah, I totally agree, Stephanie. I would piggyback off that because a very similar thought around when you're pitching that content around sustainability is really incorporating that broader travel message. So, whether your goal is to drive regional dispersion or to educate travelers to be more responsible, what we're really all seeking to do is to change traveler behavior, and really all travelers. So at CrowdRiff, we've actually found that storytelling can be the cornerstone of influencing behavior. And as we've looked at in this webinar, UGC is content that supports that goal, as it really has the power to tell this, very emotive story. So by choosing UGC that creates that emotional swell, and then you layer it with sustainability or any best practices that are important to your destination, this really is a powerful way to influence those travel decisions for people who are looking for sustainable travel destinations, but also, as you said, not preaching to the choir, looking for those people who are looking for destinations that even support their values, but by baking sustainability into it, then you're appealing to that broader demographic.
The last note that I think I would add to that too is it's a way for destinations to differentiate themselves. Destinations are always looking for different ways to differentiate themselves and stand out among the noise. And this is one way that destinations can start differentiating themselves and driving towards a particular message that we know that a lot of travelers are interested in hearing and seeing and experiencing.
And I think with the UCG piece, right, it's actually like reaching out to those customers in some capacity after they visited and reminding them, because you travel in the sustainable way, here's a statistic that really proves out the impact that really being a sustainable traveler had on our destination, and that then I think excites them because they did a good thing. On top of the fact that they got to have this great travel experience, they also were contributing to the environment or contributing to your cause. And that sort of helps drive that repeat business too. It gets people excited to come back because they know they treated your destination well and you're excited to welcome them back. Okay, so I think we've already sort of touched on this when you said, your travel audience is ultimately everyone, but I think a lot of destinations would be curious if we have any insight into what the target group demographically is for sustainable traveler. Like ultimately, who is that traveler that they should be trying to get in front of? I'll send it to Zoe first.
Thank you. I was just going to jump on that one. Thank you. I think what's interesting is that what we're seeing at CrowdRiff through the content that's being ingested into our platform is that we're really seeing that there's no set demographic. It's really this desire by most travelers to travel in a way that aligns to their values. But I think to inspire and attract those travelers who sustainable travel maybe isn't the driving goal for them, the best way to approach it is to tell your destination story and then bake sustainability into it, similar to what we were talking about before. So you don't make it necessarily just strictly sustainable content, but you make sustainability a part of all of your content. So you're speaking about, if you're speaking about whale watching tours, you can also share images that have safe distance protocols displayed in the images. Or maybe if you're speaking to city tours, you can use UGC that shares bike riding routes or travel maps to use local transportation. It's more like when destinations share UGC that supports sustainable practices, we know that UGC drives higher click-through rates and it drives greater trust. The result is that you will attract those travelers. So, going back to that question from before, it really is this kind of broad audience that we're speaking to, and there's not really that very specific target audience.
Yeah, and I would add to that in terms of filling the funnel and finding the right people, it's about focusing on the travel data and more about the behaviors, less about the demographics, right? Because you want to focus on people who, A, want to travel, that's important, B, show behaviors of things that may or may not be sustainable, because we just talked about how it's important to get the message out there to everyone, but really focusing on the travel intent piece, the people that are booking, and then ultimately the people that are arriving, those three different data buckets that we talked about, and using that data to help you build your strategy around who you should be reaching based on the behaviors that they're showing in terms of their travel intent and their booking behavior. So I think it's more important less about the demographics of who we think someone is and more about who we know someone is based on the data that they're showing.
And I think also, Stephanie, through the examples that you shared previously as well, and through the examples that we were talking through with UGC, is that sustainability has such a broad stroke around it as well too. So it can often get bucketed into, nature experiences, but it is a broad stroke. It's social, economic, cultural, and so it's not necessarily just looking at somebody who only likes to hike. It's, you gave an example before around, I think it was Visit Asheville. It's around like food sustainability as well, too, food sustainability. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well too, is that the demographic doesn't necessarily just have to be someone who likes to hike, because sustainability is such a huge topic in a way to be able to address travel, that I think it does allow for that broader stroke.
That's a really good point. Really, a lot of areas that you can go to are very, beautiful museums and an amazing culture, and it's not necessarily related to going and exploring in the mountains, right? But we still want those travelers to appreciate the sustainable efforts that are happening there and care for the destination. So that's a great point. All right, so we've got these great campaigns going. We're focusing on driving those sustainable travelers that really think about it in their travel choices. Now, can we touch a little bit on the digital metrics piece? How can a destination then understand that their efforts are fruitful?
Yeah, I think it's looking at the insights and the analytics that you get back, whether it be the clicks or engagement on a specific ad that is more focused on sustainability, or whether it be when people arrive, how they're moving around the city, or it could even be the local hotel, how much recycling was put in that recycling bin versus in the trash can. I think there are so many different ways that you can measure that, but it's all about using the data and insights that you collect after the efforts that you implement to try to understand, did it work? Should I keep doing more of it? And am I reaching the right people?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, it's very much comes down to what the destination's KPIs are. So what are their specific goals that they're tracking? But we've definitely seen, from CrowdRiff's point of view, we see that UGC drives this higher engagement rate on social posts and ads. So really, whatever that specific digital metric is that a destination is working towards, we know that using UGC really supports that. And the other thing to also note is that UGC is also really cyclical. So we see that when destinations post the type of content they want to see, the travelers in turn will post more of the same. So therefore, you can use UGC to educate, and then you'll have travelers following suit as well too. So that's what's so great about being able to use UGC. And then, as we shared before earlier in the webinar, it really does drive that higher click-through rate as well.
Awesome. So, okay, I think this is a really good one that sort of touches on how the full ecosystem operates. So we know that we want to start with the traveler and, learn about how the customer sort of cares about the sustainable travel piece. But then how do we actually think about the host community as an important audience that really needs to know what the tourism industry is doing beyond, do no harm, to really create the social, cultural, and economic, environmental value behind all of this?
Yeah, I'd love to jump into that one, Christy, especially because I feel like this is critical. Like, DMOs are going forward with practices that aren't including their host community or any of the locals and what they're doing, then they're not going to really be able to build that social license with their community. And everything in sustainability, as I was saying before, like, it goes way beyond just the natural landscape. It goes towards supporting any social, cultural, environmental, and economic component. And there's a balance there. And sometimes those 4 pillars can be at odds. So really, every component of sustainable travel has to consider those different lenses. So from a marketing perspective, when DMOs are learning along the sustainability journey, they can start to look to build their marketing plans to address each one of these. So you can look at, like, what are they doing to give back to their community? What are they doing to lift up voices in their community? How are they learning from locals in terms of what content they're crafting? Are they hiring writers from different groups to be the voice of the community? So if it's rooted in the local experience, and if locals aren't at the forefront of that, then they're not really marketing in a sustainable travel way. So I think that the cultural piece to that is really critical to any sustainable efforts that a destination is working towards.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Having local buy-in is vital to making sure that your destination not only messages out to travelers that they are a sustainable destination, but actually living, breathing, and proving that culture once you arrive, right? If you don't have locals bought into the concept, then having travelers arrive based on what they expect, their experience is going to be very different. So making sure not only that locals are bought in, but also that they have input, I think is also important. Making sure that the locals, that you're striving towards sustainable efforts that locals care about most, right? If they want their nature trails to be clean, then making sure that you have trash cans along the way, or that you have recycling along the way, or if you want your beaches to be clean, or if you want water to be conserved, or if you want travel to be limited, whatever it is, but making sure that the locals are not only bought in, but living and breathing that message as well. And then on the flip side, they're going to be the ones that are going to tell their family, their friends, share on social media. They are going to be the first line of defense in terms of showing what is in their destination to get travelers to come and to getting the message out there. This is the world we live in. This is beautiful. Come visit us. So using them as a vehicle to drive that message is, I think, really important.
And would that then, Zoe, would that be a piece of the user generated content story? I mean, even from a local perspective, if they're putting a bunch of amazing pictures on their social media when they have a staycation or family comes in town, that's all sort of driving the wheel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, being able to work with your local community and being able to share their voices through UGC is such an authentic and powerful way to do that, especially when you're able to share that then in your caption and in your stories. And then there's that local pride for them to be showcased within all of your marketing efforts as well, for them to be able to see that their story matters. And that really is part of that sustainable cycle as well too. So UGC then definitely plays a huge part of that.
I have one more question on that. When people then see, because the whole basis around user generated content is we get these amazing images shared and they're from the individual. So let's say Tom, for example, goes to the destination and takes some amazing video footage or images, and those get reposted. Is there some sense of pride even from that traveler of saying, oh my gosh, they're actually reposting my content? I feel really engaged and connected then with the destination because I feel heard almost.
Oh, like hugely so. It is a, there's so many destinations that to have a destination share your content, and especially if it's on brand, if it's a place that you feel an emotional connection to, it just actually like completely illuminates you and also makes you feel very seen. So for a destination to share that content, say for Tom, so if Tom took a photo, then it's also there's a moment of pride to have your content shared on that destination's page, especially because when your content is being shared, there's been a conversation. So it's not necessarily out of the blue. That's what we do with CrowdRiff, is being able to get their rights approval for it. So there's even that sense of pride of being contacted directly from the destination to say, like, we love the image that you've shared and we would love to share it across our marketing efforts. There really is that strong sense of pride. And we've definitely seen that the conversation that happens within that community of creators or that one person in particular, there's so much to share. There's so much pride within that too, and just how that then reverberates through their communities as well too, because then you're having that third party communication. If Tom shares the photo, destination shares it, there's a very good chance that they're then going to share it on their platform, and then it shares out to the community of this kind of shared value alignment as well too.
It's exactly what I was saying. It's almost like making your travelers and your locals influence marketer, putting them on this platform. And again, they're just going on this amazing trip. So it's just this extra added value for everybody. Love it. Awesome.
I kind of imagine that, just to jump in quickly, I kind of imagine that whole funnel as almost a wheel. I love to do like the marketing wheel. So Tom shares reaches 100 people, the destination shares reaches another 100 people. Those 200 people then fall into that travel intent bucket because all of a sudden they are showing interest, ingesting content related to that, showing intent to travel there, showing that they might be interested. So then they fall into the travel intent bucket. And then those people then filter into new conversions for the or new travelers for the destination. So it's feeding that marketing wheel, like you said, Zoe, that I think is so powerful.
Yeah, and even going back to that first stat that you shared too, around 87% of travelers wanting to have a sustainable travel experience. So if you're also making those efforts as a destination and declaring that sustainability effort, and then you have your content shared as part of that destination's content, that sense of being able to tie into that you're making an impact. And I think that we all have that, that value right now that we're striving towards as travelers. And so to have a destination then share your content that is, working towards a sustainable effort, there's true pride in that as well too.
I love that. That is great perspective. Okay, we have time for one more question, it looks like. So we covered this a little bit, but let's, once more, put a big bow on it. So how do we attract those travelers that have the mindset that they want to experience the sustainable culture in a way, but not nature driven, right? So I guess elaborating even more on the fact that not all travelers that are interested in sustainability are interested in camping and nature driven trips, right? So how do we sort of evangelize that message that we have these amazing offerings that maybe aren't nature specific, that are still excited about sustainability?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Zoe.
You go for it, Stephanie.
I was going to jump in and say, I think from a reaching those people perspective and really targeting them with the right message, it comes to leaning into specific keywords or affinities or categories or things that may show that their behaviors lean towards traveling sustainable. But that list of words could be thousands long because you're talking about recycling, you're talking about transportation, you're talking about eco-friendly. There are a ton of different words and concepts and behaviors that show that someone is interested in traveling sustainable. So I think it's really using different ways to identify and reach those consumers. But then we also talked about driving new interests, and that everyone, essentially 87%, is interested in traveling sustainably. So making sure that you don't just focus on that hiking in the outdoors, which are very important, but that you're also focusing on anything that could be related to being conscientious about our planet.
Yeah, I think you both have mentioned this too in your answers, which I think is really important, is that, when we talk about sustainable travel, we can tend to default to nature-based experiences and environmental conservation. And when you actually look at that broader picture of what sustainable looks like, it goes back to those 4 pillars, that social, cultural, environmental, and economic. And when one of those are out of balance, we're not really being sustainable. And businesses, they need to pay their rent and their mortgages while also respecting the culture and having enough housing for their staff and meeting the needs of travelers. And so all of those things are working together to make this sustainable travel destination. So when you're looking to attract those travelers and you're looking for someone who has that mindset, if it's the culture, if that's the biggest offer, then that becomes so critical. And so it goes back to integrating locals then into telling the story of that culture, maybe using UGC to find authentic representation of that culture, working with creators that can speak to what those offerings are. There's this authenticity layer that has to happen when you're marketing any specific, like a cultural experience, and that's where a lot of folks can really go wrong. So it's not just about, as you were saying, Stephanie, not just nature-based experience. It's easy to default to those experiences like leave no trace or stay on the trail, those kinds of things. But the cultural preservation is really critical, and we can look to leaders in this space like Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, some of those really big players that are working around culture-based experiences, and there's a lot of care that needs to be taken in that space. So there's a lot of layers to it, but that cultural component of it is a very special one.
Well, thank you both so much. I hope our destination marketers and everybody else here today learned a ton. we are really diving in deep to start thinking through some of the things that are industry challenges. So next up, we're going to start thinking through some diversity, equity, inclusion, and how we can really provide some helpful tips and audience reach around that. So stay tuned for some more great knowledge shares coming. We appreciate everybody for coming today, and for both you ladies for this fantastic overview of all things sustainability. And please feel free to reach out to Sojourn and CrowdRiff with any follow-up questions you have.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being able to come and speak on the topic, and thanks so much for inviting us, Sojourn.
Ditto to what
Thanks.
Zoe.
Bye, everyone.